remember when we would go over Bible passages, there was a lot of stuff that you would describe as representing not settling for domesticity and contentedness and homemade plans of salvation and breaking free of all of that to the flow. But I forget a lot of it now, and a lot of it I didn't record. But that's what we were just talking about. We were talking about the idea of domesticity and this idea that a lot of religious people fall for. And I don't want to say necessarily fall for, but they think that that's the ultimate thing. And it's a temptation to think that the answer to life is to set up a nice, comfy existence, to have the food in the fridge, a nice family, and live happily ever after, a fairy tale world. The fairy tale. Any thoughts of this, Grandpa?
Well, it reminds me of that saying attributed to Jesus: foxes have dens, birds have nests, and contented human beings have homemade plans of protection, self-protection, self-promotion, and self-salvation. But the Son of Man requires none of these. Those who understand what it's all about are interested in the flow, not in settling. And there is a flow that we depend on. There is an order we depend on. And that is to become up tempo with the flow.
So, but then someone might say, okay, I hear this. I like that idea because that's the way I am, man. I like to go out there and, fight for mine. And I don't like to live contented either. That's baby. That's pussy stuff. Like, I want to be, fighting people. And that's what I like. I like Fight Club. Is that the right? And then also we could talk about Fight Club. But.
Well, that's a step. That's a step in raising your level of aliveness. It's a step toward the hero's journey, because it'll get you into trouble so that you'll see that you're headed down a dead end street. But you see, if you're not going anywhere, if you're not moving, you can spend your whole life on a dead end street and never realize it's getting you nowhere. So a person that's a radical reformer and rebel, etc., he's going hell bent for election down a dead end street, but he's going to crash.
And crashing is a good thing.
Crashing is absolutely a good thing. Then you crash up against the wall.
Like Noah just posted a thing saying that if I were to live again, I would want to make more heirs.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say, if I were to live again, I wouldn't make the same heirs I made. But Noah said, if I were to live again, I would want to make more heirs than I made.
Yeah. Rather than being a good guy, a nice guy, passive and deferential to what you're supposed to do.
So you're saying, and this is reminding me of, could you describe that quote by Jesus where he says, you're either hot or cold. Then at least I can keep you or whatever. But if you're lukewarm, I'm going to spit you out.
Yeah. Lukewarm, you'll just die in your own... it reminds me of that story, and I never did find out about this particular bird that builds a nest that hangs from a branch in a tree, and it's a long bag, and he drops his egg down into that nest and then just leaves the egg there to let the sun keep it warm, and eventually it hatches. And then once the baby hatches, the mama and the daddy bird comes and drops the food down into the nest, and the baby bird has to stay in there and poo on the bottom of the nest until eventually the nest gets full enough that it can get out. So we all benefit from our mistakes, and these are all preparing us to break out of the nest.
So the pooing could represent the mistakes, but it also represents just the ego, the thoughts, all the accumulated knowledge, everything that you're going through. You see, so if the baby were not going through anything, it's just gonna sit there and not eat anything, and it's just gonna never get out of the nest. But the idea is, you gotta do all these practices and go through all this stuff, and then so what is that, Grandpa? And then you can
Yeah.
get out of the nest. So
Yeah,
what's
you
that,
can. Nobody else can rescue you. It's your responsibility to do the preparation, or like the movie Forrest Gump. When you get in trouble, you got to run. When you don't know what to do, and you can't figure out what alternatives, well, then just start running. Doesn't matter what direction you're going. Just start running, and once you get running, you get the momentum going. Then you can be guided. It's that old saying, it's hard to steer a stalled automobile. Once you get it rolling, then it can be guided. And that's what being willing to make mistakes, being willing to eat from the tree of knowledge. See that back at the Garden of Eden story. See, they were tempted to just settle for life in the garden, but they ate from the tree of knowledge, and eating from the tree of knowledge prepared them to break out. But there's a lot of trouble when you break out. You have to. It's a hero's journey. There are difficulties, and maybe that's what life is all about, to prepare us for something bigger than life, something larger than life.
So I thought that the Garden of Eden, though, represented the flow awareness, and yeah, eating out of the fruit or the knowledge, that's the ego and stuff, and it's inevitable, it's necessary until you can get back into the flow, right? Isn't the idea that you leave the flow so you can get back into it?
Yeah. See, again, it would appear that whole story is saying the flow is a natural gift. It's our destiny. We're born into that, but we're not aware of it. And in order to become aware of it, we apparently have to get out of it in order to become strong enough to then consciously fall back into it.
So you got to go out of it, become strong enough to go back into it. But you're talking about the idea of there is here. So can we talk about the story of the prodigal son, Grandpa, and how this relates? The
Yeah.
prodigal son.
Yeah, that's again the theme of that story appears to be the same thing, that the elder son was content, and he had a homemade plan of salvation, and he figured life can't get any better than this. I got enough to keep me alive until I die, and I won't go broke. I can die before I go broke. But the prodigal son did what I like to call wrestling with Shirley. He says, surely there's got to be more to life than this. And so he left that all behind. And as he did, he began to see that he apparently was under, or at least the myth tends to indicate, that he thought he could come up with his own plan, come up with his own nest, and be the master of his own destiny. And he discovered that didn't work either. So he couldn't borrow from his parents, nor could he create it himself. And that's when he then woke up and became aware that neither is the answer. So he returned not to domesticity, but to the blessing that was available as a result of all of his preparation, or back to the bird in the nest. He'd made enough mistakes and learned enough tricks of the trade that he was eventually strong enough to survive outside the nest.
And then he returned. So he learned all that. He returned. He learned all that stuff. So originally was he in the flow? But no, originally he was in conformity. Right. And then he left to strengthen himself.
Yeah.
Then he returns. Now he's in the flow.
Yeah. See, I like a simple metaphor. If you go to an airport, you have these tramways where there's a belt, you can ride on that. But if you try to step onto it without moving, it'll knock you down. But if you get up to the speed of the flow, up to the speed of the escalator or the ramp, then you can step on it and you can benefit from that. In fact, if you're moving, then you can keep moving on the thing, and fly, float, walk on water.
So going back to the idea of it's better to be hot or cold. So you get yourself in trouble by being hot or cold, and that's good rather than just being contented and just being lukewarm, like the older brother probably just like being just settling and being lukewarm. Then he's never gonna get anywhere. He's never gonna get himself in trouble. So why is it good to get yourself in trouble?
You know, see the other story that's very clear about this whole idea is Jacob and Esau. Esau settled for domesticity, but Jacob said, surely there's got to be more to life than this. And that got him both strengthened and up tempo that he could step into the flow, or that the flow could catch him up and he could benefit from that.
So he's a seeker, right? He's an inquirer. He's a philosopher, kind of, right?
Yeah.
And what was it?
Yeah, the philosopher poet. Who is it called us a philosopher poet? Some great writer, philosopher. I don't remember now.
So we were talking about Rohan and how when he was in the churches and stuff, he would go to church, and the thing was everyone else was doing their thing and they were believing in Jesus and praying and being good people and everything, but Rohan he had too much game, like he was getting the girls, and he said a lot of the dudes would get really jealous of him and angry with him because he's hooking up with all these girls in the church, or he's even having sex with some of the girls and stuff. And a lot of people would say, see, that Rohan, that's evil, and he's never gonna, he's gonna go to hell because of that. But is it possible that Rohan's better off than a lot of the people in there?
Yeah, he is on a dead end street that's not going to get him anywhere, but he's at least going to crash at the end of the street, so that that's a possibility they could wake up. But those who are just conforming, sitting on the sideline, back to what we were talking about earlier, they're not going anywhere, and they're never going to crash. They're never knowing they'll never come to an awareness that they're on a dead end street.
So, like with me, if I could just go to the church and just be content and just follow whatever, but also I'd be contemplating, obviously. But like I'm just an average guy. But the average guy, he might want to be like like Rohan and be like, I want to get girls too, and I want to learn how to do, because by doing these things, okay, now you're strengthening your interpersonal skills. You want to learn how to strengthen your interpersonal skills, so now you're going to be able to do it better and be able to go back to the home and you have more skills, you have more strengths, you understand existence more, and now you can flow even better. Because now in any situation, by working on those assets, the idea of leveraging your assets, by working on those assets, now you're stronger. It's like when I'm in a basketball game and I got my dribble really good. Now my shot might even be better because I'm getting being able to get myself open more and stuff by working on some skills. So now I'm going to be able to flow better because I worked on one skill. Now everything is kind of put. Ain't that scamper?
Yeah, well, that's true. These are all strengthening exercises. If you know the degree to which you see them as like meditation disciplines or active meditations. So if you see them for that and engage in them for that reason, you can really benefit from them. But even if you don't understand it, you can still benefit from it because it is a strengthening. It's raising your level of aliveness. It's getting you up closer to the tempo of the flow. There may be other things, other forms of discipline, like contemplative disciplines that will do the same thing, but maybe you benefit most depending upon your particular personality style. Some of us benefit more from active and others more from contemplative meditative disciplines.
Yeah, that's like ever.
No.
Let's start up another one.